Gigi, last night, tell me about it. Was that
Huh.
show heavily cut?
Yes, there was quite a lot that I said that was cut, and there was also quite a lot of what the audience said that was cut, including an entire segment with the man who was arrested for protesting lockdowns in Sydney in his red swimsuit back, I think, a couple of years ago. And he was in the audience, but they completely cut his entire bit, including some very articulate statements he made about expecting an apology from the Australian police officer who arrested him. But I expected that. I mean, I of course expected to have a lot of my commentary cut, and actually I was expecting more creative editing, shall we say. But I thought that at least it was possible to see that the audience included some sane people and some people who really were demanding more accountability from their leaders during COVID. And I think it hopefully was clear to most who watched that program that we need far more than 45 minutes on a mainstream television program in prime time to have a proper, thorough COVID policy retrospective. And we need a lot more angles covered. We need a lot more expertise in the room. So I hope that that's at least a baby step in the direction of getting Australians in general to support a more thorough look back at what happened.
You think that the show could be, as you've nearly described to me, then a catalyst for heading for a royal commission or a really important, really top level inquiry? Or
I think that the momentum towards a royal commission was over there far before this show. I do think that the Channel 7 people seemed to understand the import of what they were doing, both in terms of the lead up. They were advertising this as, a must see event, the biggest show of the year, and all that sort of thing. So I think they knew it was a hot button topic. And I have gotten an awful lot of emails, I have to say. I mean, I've basically just been dealing with emails all day today from people mainly who are expressing their gratitude for me, but also half a dozen or so who said things I can't repeat on in polite company, including that I should go back to the United States and calling me many epithets. So that shows me that there was a large amount of reach from this show. So that's always positive, right? When you have a large amount of reach for messages that are not just the mainstream propaganda, narrative, disinformation stuff, then I think that's positive. But honestly, I'm very realistic, Russell, about the power realities in play here, and I'm sure you are too, being in your job, right? You must see the entrenched incentives that people in power have to cover this up, to dodge questions, and we saw that in full flight on the show. I mean, Anastasia Palaszczuk was an expert and showed her expertise at dodging questions and shifting blame and pointing to other people and making motherhood statements that didn't really mean anything. So that's exactly what I would expect going forward. And the only way we're going to get accountability, an apology, and a real look back and a critical analysis of the lessons that we can learn is if people who were not involved in the policy decisions at the time actually have the main directorial role in royal commission or inquiry or whatever we want to call it that tries to actually conduct that kind of retrospective.
Professor Foster, I am really concerned that someone of your standing wasn't given the opportunities or was cast as someone who was negative to everything that was being said. That's how it came across to me, that they wanted to show you as this outlier.
Yeah.
And you're anything but an outlier.
Well, I appreciate that. In your eyes, maybe not, Russell, but I think in certainly the eyes of my own profession, I am. Anastasia, you may have seen, did mention that an economist she consulted with in her government was perfectly happy to go right along with the madness. And that was the case for most economists during this period. I mean, it was the case for most politicians. It was the case in most professions.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So in that sense, I mean, I think Team Sanity is still in the minority in Australia, and we certainly were at the time. And honestly, I mean, the show is sort of accurate in depicting my attitude towards a lot of the drivel that was being spouted by the people on either side of me on that panel. I mean, I did not think that what was coming out of their mouths was a true representation or a scientific analysis of what had happened.